Creative burnout is real. Oh man, as a creative entrepreneur, I'm sure like you hear this all the time if you're watching this. Man, aren't you doing what you love? How can you get tired? If you're doing what you're passionate about, it's not really work. Yes, it is. That's like a complete lie. Do not ever entertain that mess. It is definitely a lie. There's definitely a way to get burnt out as a creative entrepreneur. When you're working on things that you're passionate about, I think for me at least, it's super easy to overwork yourself because you're not really realizing the amount of time and effort that you're putting into it. And it's hard for me too to take a step back and think about spending time just for me, whether that's cooking or working out or just getting outside, hanging with friends. It's really hard to start to think about, okay, I need to take a step back from this, ease my mind a little bit, and then come back to it again tomorrow, the next day, whatever that time is. When you're working on client work, it's hard to take a step back and work on passion projects and things that really remind you of why you started this business to begin with. And part of that is because passion projects typically are not going to be the projects that pay the bills. I mean, there's fun. They're a way for you to flex a creative muscle and show all that you can do, much like style shoots, much like short films, spec ads, whatever the project is, photo series about something that you're passionate about. But a lot of times, more often than not, as a creative entrepreneur, those are not projects that people are just going to come out the woodwork and be like, yes, I'm going to pay you to do whatever you want. That's a fantasy. That's not going to happen. And so getting wrapped up in client work, it becomes a cycle of like, man, I need to work, I need to pay bills. Okay, bills are paid. How can I keep paying bills? I don't have time to do this thing. And when you want to take time off, it's like the last thing you want to do is work. Have work. I say work with a deadline. Maybe that's more accurate. You know what I mean? Because passion projects you could be working on for years. And those can be things that you do take time away from traditional client work or paid work to do. But it just comes back to like, man, I've been picking up a camera. I've been running and gunning so long. Like it's time for me to take a breather, and the world isn't going to stop because I take a breather. Or at least that's what I try to tell myself. I hope that's the truth. It's a lot of work to go from I'm an artist, I'm passionate about these things, I have this creative skill set, to packaging that in a way that can provide value for clients and customers. So that's like step one is like the major thing. How do I go from doing this thing that I love to doing this thing that I love for money? So that's like a whole cycle. And I would say the most common cycle that I get into as a creative entrepreneur is I market myself really, really hard and aggressively. I get a lot of paid clients. And then once those paid clients, whether they're retainers, long-term contracts, one-off kind of clients, once all those things in, then I'm like, oh man, I need more clients. And then it starts this whole cycle again where I'm not really marketing and working at the same time. Thankfully, I just hired someone to help me with the marketing piece so I can focus more on the work and client engagement and growing revenue for the business. But like, before that, it was a struggle, you know what I mean? It's just like there's just not enough hours in the day sometimes, and you want to, put your best foot forward and create the best work for your clients. And that takes time. It really does. Like if I don't have to sit on social media, I won't. So if I'm working, that's the perfect excuse for me to not be on social media or worry about creating content for myself or any of those type of things. People love to work with people that they see doing the type of work that they need, right? So that was really a struggle to come to terms with and be like, okay, I need to not continue the cycle again. I need to hire someone to help kind of spread this load a little bit. And that's helped a lot, but it's still, there's still ways that I burn out so very often. And the reality is like, burnout happens, and it happens because at the end of the day, you need money to keep going. You need money to invest in your craft, to invest in yourself, and to provide opportunities for other people, and just be able to give back. That takes money, and it's something that we all are struggling, and not struggling, maybe some of us are really successful, but striving for, I should say. We're striving for that, continued success and continued ability to create and get paid to create, and also take time for ourselves. So striking that balance is very imperative. And that's something I've been really intentional about throughout this pandemic, even though it's almost over, thank goodness. But it's been such a great way for me to take a breather and take a step back and see how I can avoid burnout as much as possible and really just show up for myself. So before I was in a position to kind of hire George and Jessica, who are a part of my team, there were some things that I did to kind of set myself up for success and grow in my organizational skills and grow in just working smarter and not harder all the time. So one of the things that I really made an effort to do out of the gate was just to automate as much of my process as possible. That's automating my marketing and social media planning, so planning ahead and scheduling posts as much as possible. Automating certain things like with my emails, having email templates, having links to my calendar that automatically syncs with my Google Calendar so people know when I'm available to meet, to talk, to brainstorm, whatever. And also automating my invoices. So I use Square, and that works really well. HubSpot for my calendar. I have a few other automations as well, but those are just the ones that I can think of right out of the gate. And those have worked tremendously. The less time you have to spend doing a lot of back and forth oh man, it's gonna make you feel like $1,000, you know what I mean? And also just thinking through what is the process when a client, from the moment someone reaches out to me to the moment I deliver a product to them. What does that process look like? So standardizing that process as much as possible. So one, clients know what to expect from you, but also you have in your mind how this process is supposed to go so that you're not wondering, hey, why haven't I been paid yet? Hey, have they paid this deposit? Hey, do I need to follow up with them about, the day we're supposed to shoot? That's a real good recipe for like sending 1,000 emails and feeling like you've done one thing the entire day. That's just would not recommend at all. So this next tip may be a little bit harder for people who are just starting, but that's understanding your cash flow. So understanding which times of the year are going to be a little more cash flow low and a little more cash flow heavy. So cash flow heavy are typically the months where you're working more, probably you're a little more involved, you really don't have time to create content for yourself. And so cash flow low months, those may be times where you're not working as much on paid projects and you have time to do things like passion projects, plan ahead in terms of social media, and work on things that you may not normally have time for when you're knee-deep in client work. And it's important to do passion projects. One, because again, they remind you why you started, and two, they give people that are looking to work with you an idea of what all you can do creatively, whether that's, photography, filmmaking, coloring, editing, DPing, directing, producing, painting, whatever your creative thing is, really digging into that bag and pulling out tricks, trying new things, really getting accustomed to using your gear and knowing it like the back of your hand. That's really going to save you a lot of time in your heavy season when you're just, you have to really like churn stuff out and just be ready to go at all times. The last one of these kind of ties all these tips together, but I still think it's very important to think about, and that's communicating. And that's communicating with your clients, communicating ideas when you're collaborating with people, communicating what your desired role is and what you're adding to that team, what your vision is for a project. Just being able to effectively share a vision can really just save you a lot of headache and save you a lot of grief. And it's just a life skill that you're going to need for years to come, because the clearer you can be and more concise you can be, that is really going to be effective and appreciated, I feel like, by the people that you work with. Nobody wants to go around the world just to get one answer. You know what I mean? Like, it's your job to communicate effectively, one, what your vision is, and two, what you need from people. And so that has really been helpful for me in thinking of, okay, what is the best way that I can explain myself, that I can get what I need, and they can know what to expect from me. Those are just my tips. I'm excited to share some of the passion projects and short film projects that I've been working on during my slow season. And if you want to stay tuned for those, hit that subscribe button, like this video if you liked it, and so that's it for me. Those are my tips. I'm super excited to share some passion projects and short films that I've been working on during my slower season. If you want to stay tuned for those, hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, and toggle that notification to get more stories about owning and running a creative business and more tips on visual storytelling. See you guys in the next one.